So a very warm welcome to all of you attending this NTI webinar, having focus on how you can gain more time for creativity with NTI for Vault. So first of all, the house rules. By default, all participants are muted, but the Q&A panel is open, and really feel free to ask questions or request using that. The webinar will be recorded and, of course, shared afterwards. It will be available on demand. And at last, please fill out the survey after the webinar. That would be really appreciated. So my name is René. I've been a part of the NTI organization the last 16 years. I'm based in Denmark, and previously I've been working as a system consultant, but also a system architect, implementing all kind of PDM and CAD solutions, mainly in Denmark. Today, I'm leading the software unit of NTI, and by that, also responsible for all the software developed by NTI, both within the building industry, but also for the manufacturing area. And with me today, I have my colleague Morten, and I'll just shortly hand over for him to present himself.
Yeah. Thank you, René. So my name is Morten Benner-Rolsgaard, and I'm also located in Denmark. And I am the NTI Group Product Manager within the manufacturing area. So I'm responsible for the vision and mission of the manufacturing products. And I have been part of NTI for 4 years, working as a consultant and solution architect, and of course a product manager.
Yeah, thank you so much, Morten. So the agenda of this webinar is first of all for me to give you an overall presentation of NTI, but also to talk about the different solution approaches you can have using our own IP products on top of the Autodesk platform. And with that, also the different solution concepts we have for the manufacturing area. After that, I will hand over to Morten for him to present how you as an engineer can gain an overview of your engineering data status, but also to talk about how the release process is handled and how we can ensure data quality during the release process. And last, of course, also how you can collaborate, how can you share your engineering data after it has been released. So this is the overall agenda for this webinar. So what we do, we are basically a leading full service supplier of digital solution, both for the construction, design, manufacturing, and media entertainment industry. And we are an Autodesk Platinum partner as well. Today, NTI is based in 13 countries, most of them in Europe. We also have offices in Brazil, and we are plus 900 employees. So this is the landscape as it is today of NTI. So our customers, basically we help customers ranging from small companies to large enterprise company, meaning global companies. And our customers, they include everything from design companies, engineering, plant and process companies, just to mention a few. And of course, our customers, they are ambitious. They are a desire to succeed, but also to innovate with a sustainable approach. So we basically supply solutions for with concepts that ensure quality in your data. The whole mindset of our solution concepts is basically that you always have to rely on the data you create and handle in our solutions. Yeah, so I'm a technician, so I can pretty easily caught myself having full focus on the software, the features, the different options it will provide. But sometimes you also have to forget just for a moment about software. So in this example, of course, this could be a common engineering department. And of course, they use a lot of different software. It can be Inventor, AutoCAD, Navisworks, could be the Office package of Microsoft. And in the middle, there could be Vault Professional handling all the engineering data created by the engineering department. But if you just forget about software for a moment and just consider the R&D department as a department, because surrounding that, there's a lot of different interests. There could be the production, could be the installation side, could also be the ERP system where you have to transfer your bill of material and your item information. Could be the service department that expect to receive a spare part list, all kind of information that can support the after sale of the products engineered. Could also be the purchase department that want to have list of different items to be purchased. And of course, the sales team, they probably also expect to have some kind of material delivered from the R&D department. So for each of those, you could ask yourself several questions. So the first question to be answered, what needs to be delivered? And second, when should it be delivered? Should it be delivered on a manual approach, with an automatic approach? And how should it be delivered? Should it be extracted to a network share? Should it be extracted and imported into another system? And that actually leads to the last question. Where can it be accessed? So if you have the answers for those 4 questions, you probably also have a very good idea what should be here in the middle to support all of these surrounding the department. And of course, working with a solution can be handled with many different approaches. You could basically start in step 1 and say, yeah, we use a manual approach, meaning that if we were inside Inventor, you could basically create a button, and every time you press that button, Inventor will create a PDF file of your Inventor drawing. So that is a manual approach. You have to remember to press the button for the PDF to be updated. But also a standardized approach, because every time you press that button, the same thing will happen. It will create a PDF, for example, in black and white. It will be saved to a disk somewhere with a specific name in a specific structure. So that is standardization, but it's still manual. It could also be semi-automatic, where different events trigger the publish of the PDF file, to take that example as well. So every time you save, when you check into Vault, if you change a property, it could be many different events that actually initialize the publish of the PDF. That could be great as well. That is also a standardized approach. And then on the last step, we have the automatic approach. And this is also where we will have our main focus today, because the automatic approach is what you will experience in Autodesk Vault, for example. So every time you release an item or a file, we can actually initialize the publish of the different files. But if we can also perform checks that actually ensure the data quality is ready to be released. So it is automatic, but it's also a very secure approach. And of course, if we consider all the different solutions used by the manufacturing industry, some of them are actually a mix of those three approaches. It doesn't have to be one of them. It can easily be a mix, as long as you have an awareness of what the mindset of each approach is. So our Evolver suite. Our Evolver suite cover all our own developed IP products. And it is everything about how you create, how you prepare, and how you collaborate with your engineering data, from the beginning inside Inventor to the end where you extract the data to ERP systems, to your suppliers, whatever, whoever needs to receive it in the end. So the products will cover all these disciplines. And if we look at the product landscape as part of the Evolver suite, then we have NTI for Inventor, that is basically an add-on to Inventor. It comes in two different flavors, a professional and an essential version. And we actually, for a few weeks ago, have a similar webinar with focus on that specific add-on. We also have NTI for Vault, and NTI for Vault comes in three different flavors. We have NTI for Vault Client, which is basically an extension to the Vault client. We have one for Vault Office, and we have one for Vault Professional. And then, of course, we also have NTI for Vault Job, which is an extension to the Autodesk Vault job processor. And this is the product we will have focus on today. Beside that, we also have our NTI configurator, which is basically a front-end configurator that is web-based. It can be used by sales organizations, sales agent, end customers, and it actually are also a part of the suite. And in the end, and we've actually covered this a little today as well, is our NTI integrator. Our NTI integrator is actually what makes us very capable of integrate, for example, Vault to an ERP system, but it could also be to PLM or other systems as well. We have ERP connectors to the majority of the ERP systems. And the PLM connector, as you can see here, is, of course, developed specifically for Autodesk Fusion Manage, but we can as well connect to other PLM systems. And our integrator actually also comes in an essential version, which can provide a one-way integration from Vault to ERP or to other systems, where the full version is a bidirectional approach. So, and we also have NTI integrator client, which is basically installed on top of the Vault client, where you from the Vault client or the job processor can interact directly with the integrator. Could be on a lifecycle state change, it could be on demand. So, so this is basically the product landscape of Evolver Suite covering the manufacturing area. So with all those products in mind and the Autodesk products as well, we could basically imagine several levels of solutions. It could be a few entry levels. It could also be an extended level or an integrated level. And for each of this level, we will use a combination of the Autodesk platform in combination with our own developed IP products. So on level 1, we will have, from my opinion, the lowest level of what you could consider as a solution. So this is Inventor Professional, it is Vault Basic, but it also NTI for Inventor Essential. And with this solution, you will basically have the manual approach. So you will have the button inside Inventor where you can create your design representation files. You will also be capable of handling properties, and it will be a very standardized approach. On the second level, we will exchange Vault Basic with Vault Professional, and we will also go to the professional version of NTI for Inventor. And with this version, you can begin to publish files from Inventor directly to Vault. And you will also have additional tools inside Inventor to gain an overview of your structures and the file status. And then, of course, as we move up the stairs, we will begin to move away from the manual and the semi-automatic approach to the full automatic approach. So in this case, we will use Vault Professional, but we'll also use the job processor. So now the initialize of creating PDF files and step files will be done by lifecycle state changes inside Vault, where we create jobs for the job processor. And of course, in the last step, we will have the integrated level where we also will be integrated to PLM, ERP systems, SharePoint, whatever you could imagine. And what is common for all of these levels is basically that no matter where you start, we don't have to start all over. We can basically just scale the solution from where you are and create a specific journey for you as a company. So why NTI for Vault? Yeah, it's basically to streamline the data management and of course also reduce the time spent on manual tasks, but also to ensure a strong collaboration and integration functionality. But of course, with NTI for Vault, you will be capable of collecting and sharing documentation files across departments and stakeholders. Also, if you have the first slide in mind with the R&D department surrounded by the different departments, we will ensure a standardized approach, both for how you create data, but also how you will deliver data. And we will ensure you at any time can rely on data, and we will ensure the quality of the data. So with that said, I will hand it over to my colleague Morten for him to give you all insight and demonstrate how NTI for Vault works in real life.
Thank you, René. So I will show you some features that we have selected, which will hopefully show you how NTI for Vault could help you in regards to data quality and all these aspects that René have presented here. And the first feature that I would like to show you is the one we call data cards. And the data cards provide an alternative to the standard Vault property grid, as you can see in the image here. So as standard, the properties in Vault are presented in just a long list. And yeah, it can be quite difficult to have a good overview of the properties. But with the data cards, we can actually customize how we see these properties, which properties we see, and arrange them so it fits the user. We can also edit the properties directly in the Vault client. So it's very quick to update these properties if something is missing. We can make lookup lists, and we can also copy properties between files and items. And this is, of course, applicable for Vault Office and also Vault Professional. And it's a part of NTI for Vault client. So let's have a look at this feature. So we will find ourselves in the Vault client, and here we just navigate to a component, a part here. And as you can see to the right, we have this very long list of properties for the component. But then we can close this window and make room for what is interesting. And then we have this customized tab with the properties, where we have arranged all the properties in a suitable way for the customer, for the user, of course. And we have a direct entrance to editing these properties. And as you can see, we can make different standard lists. So we make sure that we don't make any typos when filling out the properties. And from here, we can easily update the properties for this specific component. So this is an alternative to the property overview in the Vault. And The next feature that can provide a great overview of our design data in Vault is the drawing status, which is also applicable for Vault Office and Vault Professional. And with this drawing status, we can keep track of our drawing status for both the affected drawings and the contained drawings. And by affected drawings, we mean the drawings that are affected by some model change. So that could be a reference drawing from a component perspective. So we can see that by changing a component, it might affect an assembly drawing as well. So we will have an overview of that, and that is presented in a tab in Vault as well, where we have different indicators. So it's very clear for the user not only what needs to be updated, but also why it needs to be updated. Whether it's a non-matching name or it's just an update to the model, that also needs to be updated on the drawing, or whether it might be a child component that has been updated that affects this assembly drawing. And the contained drawing is of course the model that is contained in the drawing if that needs to be updated. And we can see that in a short video here as well. So this video will just show how we can keep track of the drawing statuses using NTI for VAULT client. So once again, we navigate to an assembly in this case. And as you can see here, we have a child component here where the drawing needs to be updated. And this will of course also affect the assembly drawing. So this is indicated in the overview, and we can go directly to the child component that we need to update. So here we can see that in the affected drawings on the child component, it's also very clear that this missing update will also affect the assembly drawing. So we just go into the drawing and make a few changes and save this drawing. Check it in just the way that we are used to do it. And then when we go back to the Vault client, we can see from the drawing status overview here that the child component is now up to date. It's okay. But of course, we still need to update the assembly drawing. If we go to the child component again here, then we can see that it's now okay. But yeah, the assembly drawing needs to be updated, of course. So by having this overview, we make sure that the user is, it's very clear to the user what he or she needs to do and update to ensure the data quality at this point. And another feature to improve the overview of our design data is the users filter. So we have the standard users, where used, and users in Vault, but with this users filter, we can put up different conditions that will create a filter. So we only show the data that we are interested in seeing, and we can put it in different tabs and separate the different types of files, for example. So as you can see here, we have made a customized filter showing only the model files, and that can also be shown from the item level. And we can also see the PDFs and drawings, and really we can customize it as we want to do. And also from this overview, we can do different kind of functions manually by right-clicking in the overview. That could be to create a PDF of a drawing. We might want to copy these files to disk, maybe want to zip them, and we can also access the different components from this overview. Let's have a look. So this video will just show how this works in the Vault client, where when we highlight a assembly, we have this additional tab called the users filter, and here we are presented to all the different models with the selected properties, the properties that we have configured to be shown in the overview. And also we can see the status of whether the PDF has been created and a step file. We can yeah, as mentioned, we can copy these PDFs directly from the overview if that is what we want. And if we go to the item level, we can see that we can see the same information here. So it's regardless of having a item workflow or file-based workflow, we can access this data and see it as a user. Yeah. So by doing this, we can ensure a very easy access to our derived files and also make sure that the user is very aware of which files have been created and that we have the needed data for an assembly. So that was some features that can help us have a great overview of our data. And the next features I would like to present is the ones related to transitions. So these are features that can help us automate different workflows, and it can help us in, for example, we can avoid lifecycle changes when the data is not ready yet. So we don't want to be able to go from work in progress to a review state or release state if the data is not ready yet. And we also know that if we are in a certain state for an item or a file, then we can actually rely on the data that we have access to, because we are not dependent on manual approaches. We have automated the approach of creating files, of filling in data, and so we can rely on the process instead of some manual approach. We can also make sure that only data with the necessary quality is allowed to go through these transitions. And for this purpose, we can use NTI for VAULT client, where some of the conditions that we can add are that we can ensure that the inventor drawing is saved after the model, meaning that we are sure that the drawing actually represents the newest model. And we can also ensure property compliance, so we know that the mandatory properties are filled in, and also that they are filled in correctly. And I will just show you how this could work. And of course, this can be configured in a way that fits to your business. So here we find ourselves in the VAULT client once again, and if we just note that the date for the model here is newer than the drawing, so it has been saved later. And of course, this is not something that we want, because we want the drawing to represent the newest model. And as you can see here, we are in the work in progress lifecycle state. So when we try to change the state from work in progress to schedule for release, then we will have a prompt here saying that the drawing is saved before the model. So not only are we prevented from doing this lifecycle state change, but we also notified about the reason. So it's very clear for us that we need to go to this drawing and update it, and make sure that it is correct. So that was how we could use the NTI for VAULT client to ensure the data quality here. We can also use NTI for VAULT job to automate some of these processes. As René he mentioned, then we can have a automated approach when talking about transitions. And an example of that could be that we want to create and also attach the representation files, such as the PDF, DXF step files. So we don't have to do that manually before we try and go to the next workflow state. So here we want to make the job processor create the files and attach them to an item. And we also wanted to update the visualization files. So if we find an item in the state scheduled for release, then we know that the data is and the files are present in the item, and that is the quality is approved by the system and not by a user. Then, as a handshake, you can say from the system, we will automatically go from the state scheduled for release to another state that we have chosen to call ready for release. And in this transition, we can also do different automated functions, which could be a watermark, for example, on the PDF or on the inventor drawing. So it could be that for all the items or for all the files that are in the ready for release state, we want to indicate on the drawing that this is not a released file. This is something that is still a preliminary in a preliminary state. And then finally, when we go to the final release state, we want, or we can make NTI for VAULT client ensure that the user who initiated this release process cannot finalize the release process. So we ensure this 4-eyes check where we need an additional user to review this or to approve it in order to go to the release process, the released state. Another usage of this could also be to ensure that all child components are released, which is a very common use here. So we don't want to approve an assembly that includes components that are not yet released or being released in the same transition. And in this transition, we can also make NTI for VAULT job by using the job processor. We can update the title block, and that could be in order to add different information about who approved this and the date. We can also extract the design representation files at this point. It might be that we want in the release, in the final step where we go to the release step, work state, maybe we also want to extract the files and put them on disk, or we want to integrate to another business system at this point. And we could of course also extract the bill of material into an Excel file or another business system. So let's have a look at this, how it could work in VAULT. So now we will just see different ways to utilize these transitions and what will happen. So we will go to a component here, and as you can see, we have not yet assigned item. It's still in work in progress. So this is a new file, a new component that we are working on, and it's yeah, of course, then it's revision 0. And first thing is to assign the item. As we can see here, we don't have any associated files at this point. It's only the model and the drawing. And we save this, and then we go to the newly created item. And as we can see here, it's the same model. And then we change the state, going from work in progress to the state scheduled for release. And at this point, the job processor will fetch this created job and create the files, the PDF file, step file, DXF file, and attach it to this item. So this is a fully automated way to create these derived files. And of course, in VAULT, we can preview these files. And if we have a look at the PDF, we can see that it's the way that it should be. The drawing is, we have added a watermark with this ready for release stamp. So we are sure that this drawing is not yet used for a production purpose, but we are still in a preliminary state. And if we change the state once again to the release state, we will see that yeah, if we just release it, we will see that we have now entered the release state, meaning that we went through the conditions that we have set up. We checked that we do have the attached files that we need. We also have filled in the needed properties. And as you can see on the drawing preview here, we filled in the revision relevant notes in the table automatically. So the user don't have to do anything here except checking that that everything is in order. But we have automatically added this needed data that must be supplied in the release state. So now we can actually rely on the data that, because it is in the release state, we know that we have the needed files, and we know that the data quality is okay. Good. So when we have a released item, what we of course also need to be able to do is to revise that item. And here we can also utilize NTI for VAULT job by adding an additional workflow state or lifecycle state. And similar to the schedule for release, we will instead schedule it for ready for work in progress. So in this transition, we will add a revision row to the revision table on the drawing, where we will also add the date, and we could also add the user who initiated this revision. Furthermore, we can synchronize the Vault revision to the files and also the state of the file. So the lifecycle state of the file will actually follow the item lifecycle state. And we have a short video to show this as well. So here we will just try and grab the same item as before, but this time we will go from the released state to work in progress and show how that is revised. So as you can see here, it's the same item which is in the release state, revision 0. We have the drawing, we have all the files and the data, but now we need to do some kind of change to the file. So on the item, we change the state to a schedule for work in progress lifecycle state. And at this point, the job processor will make sure to add this row on the revision table and fill in the data that is available at this time. So now the file as well, the file and the items are in work in progress. Once again, we have bumped the revision by 1, and we have also synchronized that property to the file. So the file and the item are synchronized in regards to the revision property. And as you can see here, we have automatically added the revision row to the revision table. And now we just make a few changes here. And what we of course can't do automatically is to fill in the revision description. So we do that using the NTI for Inventor property editor here. So we can easily add this property describing what we have revised. And as you can see, we are very quickly done with this drawing. And of course, when we go back to Vault, we will need to go through the same steps in order to release this new revision, and that will update the derived files in the same way as we did in the first revision.
Yes. Can I
Yes,
interrupt you, Morten?
Yeah.
So what you just saw in this video were basically where we have a combined item and file workflow. But of course, you can also have just a file workflow or just an item workflow. And actually, from the next release, which will be available in May, we will actually be capable of handling the item state from the files. So we can go in both directions. In this example showed here, we basically combine the item with the file workflow with the main purpose of maintaining the revision table on the drawings. So just to provide you the information about that, it doesn't have to be from item to file. It could also be isolated items and or files, or in a bidirectional approach.
Yeah, thanks, Maya. That's right. Yeah. So the next feature I would like to show you here is the one called Vault to Order, which is applicable also for Vault Office and Vault Professional, and uses it is part of a Vault client, and we can also utilize NTI for Vault Job here. And what we can do with the Vault to Order is to collect and also, if we want to, stamp all the PDFs from an assembly level or an item level. So it could be that we want to add watermarks per drawing with information like the quantity and also where different components are used. So information about the assembly, and could also be that we want to add custom information filled in by the user, such as the product number or other information that we don't necessarily have on a property, but it's something that we type in as a user. And of course, we can add a lot more than that. We can control the placement of this watermark and the color and the font size to make it look exactly like we want to. And we can also make it dependent on the sheet size. And finally, we can merge the PDF files into one file. So we have collected all these PDFs into a single PDF with these watermarks on. And I will just show you how that could be done, and it can of course be configured to fit your business. Let's see. So here in the Vault client, we have highlighted the item. So this could also be from the assembly level. But here we trigger the Vault to order through the right-click menu, and we fill in the quantity and the project number. So this is where we could add different fields to fit whatever information we need to fill in as a user. And if we go to the Project Explorer here and find a dedicated folder for these PDFs, we can see in the PDF file that we have added, we have all the drawings. So this is the top assembly. And if we go to the next page here with the component, we have this information about the quantity. So in this case, if we need 2 of a plate, then this will of course be multiplied. So we need 10 for this assembly, and also the product number, as you can see here. So this is a great way to deliver data with the needed information with a manual approach here. We can also export list of drawings. So that's another way to collaborate within your business, and this is used in NTI FOR VAULT client. And with this drawing list export, we can export the entire bill of material to Excel in a structured or a flat structure. So that export can contain different information for each of the components. And we can use predefined templates. So if we have an Excel template that we want to fill in, then that is very possible. And we can also have several templates that we can select from a simple list here. Some examples of this is shown here. So here we have a template where we have different columns with the properties for each component, and we also have an indication of the structure and information about the top level assembly. And another example here is where we have exported the actual drawings, so we have access to not only this list but also the files. As you can see here, we have hyperlinks in the Excel sheet where we can access these drawings directly from the overview here. Yeah. So these were some of the features within NTI FOR VAULT that can help you both in regards to the overview and also in regards to collaborating and ensuring a great data quality. So now, as promised, we will also mention a little bit about the integrator, the NTI integrator. And first of all, I would like to just say a few things about why we want to integrate, because it goes very well in hand with NTI FOR VAULT. So when we have ensured this data quality and we have automated our process, then of course a natural next step would be to have an integrated workflow within our business. And we want to have that to improve our collaboration, meaning that our colleagues should have access to the different data in their own system that they are used to working with, and we don't have to hand over different data manually. And we can also increase the quality of the data by using automated workflows. So when we transfer the data from one system to another, we do it in an automated and standardized way. So we assure that the data that we transfer is with the needed quality and across different systems. It also enables us to standardize our workflows, which can, of course, avoid creating unneeded new items and reduce the time needed. So a natural value of this is that we gain more time for value adding tasks. So we minimize these tasks that don't really bring any value to our business, and we don't have to handle the same tasks in different systems. And one way to improve the efficiency using the NTI integrator is by using the the rule-based ending that we have in the integrator that can automatically refine our data, so we can actually improve the data quality also during the integration as part of the workflow. And that is something that usually would require a human resource and some manual approach. So just to show you a little bit more about what the integrator is, then the integrator provides a UI, so we can actually access the integrator and see how the integration is made. So we will have a visual workflow, and you will see that in a minute. But it's very clear for us how the integration is made, what system is integrated to what other system, and we can see the data mapping, meaning the properties, how are those mapped between the systems, and how we connect it, how we authenticate it, and everything like that. So we have a user interface for that. And the NTI integrator consists of different modules and extensions. And for a lot of different systems, ERP systems and PLM systems, we have connectors, as we call it, which enables us to use some standard functionalities that are related to this specific system. And I will show a few examples of that as well. And if these standard actions and standard components are not enough, then we also have a very strong scripting engine on top of the NTI integrator that allows us to write different JavaScript and do basically anything we need to do during the integration. So one example of a connector is our PLM connector, which is of course related to Autodesk Fusion Manage. And what we can do from a standard approach here, fully standard actions, is to configure custom jobs in the job queue inside Fusion Manage. We can of course create and update items in Fusion Manage, and that could be filling in different item fields. We can attach documents, and we can also of course transfer the bill of material and create the correct relationships and references inside Fusion Manage based on the Vault references. We can also run different scripts inside Fusion Manage and of course revise items and transfer different data back to Vault if that is what we want. So we also have a Vault connector which enable us to create, edit Vault items or files or ECOs. So we can actually initiate a ECO, for example, from Fusion Manage and then create it in Vault to indicate that we have a task that is design related and should not take place in Fusion Manage, but we initiate it from Fusion Manage. Could also be that we want to change the lifecycle states in Vault during the integration, or maybe we want to add a Vault job to the job queue or revise an item. So we can do a lot of different stuff using the integrator in the different systems from a standard, in a standard way using this connector. And some of the ERP connectors that we have are the Monitor G5 and G4, Jeeves, IFS, Visma, Info M3, and of course also the Microsoft Finance and Operation and Business Central. And we have some more. And of course, if you're interested, feel free to ask about if you have questions regarding a specific ERP system. Then we can have a look at it. One important point here is that we don't need the connector in order to do the integration. This is just a help. It's quite nice to have these standard approaches, but of course we can do any integration as long as we have the needed API. So this is not the connectors are not a limitation, but it's a standard approach for some systems. And here we have an example of how the architecture could look with the NTI integrator. So you can see in the bottom right corner we have the Vault client, where we use NTI for Vault. And the reason why we want to use NTI for Vault alongside the integrator is in order to initiate the integration. So we can do that using the NTI for Vault client, and that will allow us to initiate the integration using a right-click menu We can also use NTI for Vault to trigger the integrator doing a transition from one lifecycle state to another, and so on. So in this scenario, we want to either both manually and by lifecycle state change be able to initiate this integration on an item. And that will trigger the job processor, which will fetch the item and then transfer it to the integrator server, where we have an ERP connector. And then we will send, maybe we want to ensure some data quality, maybe we want to manipulate on some properties, and then we can write it to the ERP system or the PLM system. That is simply up to the setup here. Let's have a look at how it works from within the Vault client. So here we are on an item that we want to trigger the integration from. So one way is using the NTI integrator client software, where we can choose whether we want to just transfer the item itself with the metadata or the structure, and where we want to send it but with the integrator. So that's one way to use the right-click menu. Another way is using the NTI for Vault client here, where we have set up. And the advantage of using the NTI for Vault client here is that we can put up these conditions that make sure that we validate the data before we allow the user to trigger this integration manually. So in this case, we had a child component where the state was in work in progress. So we were not allowed to trigger the integration on the top level assembly. So now we just made sure that the child component was released, which should allow us to initiate the integration on the assembly. So we do it just like in the same way here, and that is done by the job processor in this case. And finally, another way to trigger the integration is by changing the state of the item. So here we are ready for release, and in this transition going to the release state, we will trigger the integration. So we don't really see what is going on the Vault side, but we can rely on the process because it is automated. So this is the user interface for the integrator, where we can see one of these transactions created in Vault. And as you can see here, we have all the different properties that we have selected to be shown in the overview, and the structure as well, and the documents. We can preview them inside the integrator if that is what we want. Here you can see how we are authenticated in Vault. So we have a connection to Vault as well. And this is the visual workflow. So it's very easy to see what is going on. We start in the green start block here, and then we go with the arrows through these action blocks. So we have a very visual way of showing our integration, how it works, and what is going on. So with that, we will move to the Q&A session. So I think I will leave the word to René once again.
Thank you so much, Morten. So there have been a lot of questions in the Q&A during the session. So first of all, the main message in this webinar is that when you automate different processes, you actually put the trust on the system. So we need to ensure that all the conditions that need to be fulfilled before you can release something is actually in place. So the files need to be property compliant, the drawings need to be updated, all the different things that need to be in place need to be ensured, and that is for our IP products, for NTI for Vault to provide. If it was on the manual approach, yeah, then you as a user have to ensure that your drawing is updated before you publish a PDF file, for example. And what you have seen demonstrated here is basically different approaches. So when we manually go inside Vault, collect PDF files and stamp them with an order number or quantity, that's a manual approach, but we still ensure that the quality of the PDF files is in place, so we can ensure that they come from a drawing that is actually released, for example. So even though it is manual, it is still a very secure approach, and the quality of the data is always where it should be. So some of the questions I've got in the Q&A is basically one of you asked me if we also support Office files, and yes, we do. We actually have a capability both for, of course, publish, for example, PDF files of Office files, but we can also update Office files. So if you change the properties on the data cards, for example, inside Vault, we have the capabilities of updating the Office documents as well. The Office document can also be updated during a lifecycle state change. So if you want to write properties to an Office document during a release process, that could be handled as well. So we don't have in specific any limitations. So all the files supported by Vault is also supported by NTI for Vault. Then there has been quite a few of you asking me if we also support the execution of our logic scripts, either on demand or on lifecycle state change. And yes, we do. We actually can execute all kinds of scripts, but especially our logic scripts can be executed both using Inventor that needs to be installed on the job processor side, but it could also be using Inventor Server, which comes with the installation of Vault. So we have a lot of possibilities using that script engine as part of the product, and that also comes with NTI for Vault job. So what else have? One of you asked me if it is possible also to handle custom properties as part of the data cards, and yes, it is. All kinds of properties can be added to the data cards, also lookup lists, as you saw in the demonstration. And what I see quite often is that if you want to be aligned, so for example, the naming you have on properties against your ERP system, for example, for that reason, if you want to align the systems, we can basically also change the display name of the properties. So when we expose the property in the data card, it will be exposed with a specific display value. So, and it can actually be quite good to get a more common understanding when the different departments communicate that the properties actually have the same naming, even though you are involved or you are in your EP system. Yeah, what else have been questioned? We also have want to say you showed that the integrator had functionalities to ERP IFS. What about Evergreen? And this is a very common question because the ERP connector we have already available is basically just created to make our integrator more user-friendly in regards to configuration. But we don't need the modules because when you install the integrator, it actually comes out of the box with a generic module. And then the generic module can basically integrate to all systems, providing API calls, using webhooks. We can communicate directly with SQL databases, SOAP calls, everything you can imagine. So if your ERP system support one of those more common approaches, we can integrate. We also have, and this is one thing to keep in mind, we do have local developers as well, and we have that for many reasons. One of the reasons is that, of course, we are aware of that there are country-specific standards, both within manufacturing, but especially also within the building industry. But also when it comes to ERP systems, for example, I know in Netherlands we have ERP systems like Radar and Nisha, and for that reason, our local developers in Netherlands have created extensions to our integrator, being capable of integrating to those systems specifically. So, and to be honest, I don't know Evergreen as an ERP system, but I would be very surprised if we don't have the capabilities of performing some kind of integration to that system. So I hope that answered your questions as well. So yes, and of course, there is a question regarding AutoCAD files. And yes, we have full support for AutoCAD files as well. We can handle the files, both the native files, but we can also handle the model space, the layout, and we have a lot of different options handling the publish of AutoCAD files to design representation files as well. So yeah, I really hope I have answered all of your questions correctly, but always feel free to reach out to your local key account manager from NTI. We are always very pleased to have this conversation with you. So, and with that said, I think I will end this session and just say thank you to all of you to attend, and a great day to all of you. So,
thank you, everyone.